So I wanted to dive right in because every conversation I'm having with doctors lately has been surrounding the idea that this vision therapy stuff just is not financially sustainable. And in all reality, vision therapy isn't failing, but the model absolutely is. And if you've ever felt exhausted, trapped in your practice, or terrified of losing one key therapist, this video is for you. We're going to talk about exactly why that's happening. Because this isn't about staffing, it's not about reimbursements, and it's definitely not because you're doing something wrong. It's because most VT practices are still operating around systems that were built on models that assume infinite human capacity. And that model is breaking doctors. Let me explain what's actually going on and what has to change if this specialty is going to survive and stay in optometry. I love vision therapy. I love everything about it. I eat, breathe, sleep it. I love going to work every day. Who else in the world, gets to say that every single day they go to work, they change lives? Like we just have the most amazing profession ever. And I want it to stay that way. And I want to do everything in my power to help that happen. And that means supporting doctors, getting them to have this be a sustainable part of their practice so that they can continue to spread their magic around the world. And that's why I'm here. So that means that we need to have an honest conversation about how we make that happen. The way most practices are built today, it's not sustainable. Here's what that looks like just for an example of real life. You build a thriving practice, a thriving vision therapy department. It grows. And then you hire someone, you train them, you pour hours and hours and hours into developing their skills. And then one day they leave. And suddenly, 30, maybe 40% of your revenue is vulnerable. Not because the therapy doesn't work, but because your entire delivery model depends on that one person. Or maybe they don't leave. Maybe they burn out. Maybe they start resenting the schedule. For us, when we first opened, we were there Monday through Friday, seeing patients until 7, and then staying late to document. And then we were also there on Saturdays. While when we first started, we were in our 20s. It's like, oh, it's fine. Everything's fine. Who cares? But then we got older and we got tired and nobody wants to do all that. So we had to either lose staff or cut hours. And that's what I'm hearing from a lot of doctors. A lot of patients want to come in on Saturdays. Nobody wants to work Saturdays. And then the patients schedule on Saturdays. And then you find staff that agree begrudgingly to work on Saturdays. And then the patients cancel because they get plans on Saturdays. It's like, okay, I'm glad we're here. I'm glad I convinced my staff to come in for no reason. That was great. And even if they don't resent the schedule, maybe you can't afford to give them the compensation they deserve. And now you're stuck. I say this as someone who has felt the impact of losing key people, not because they didn't love vision therapy or believe in it, but because the structure didn't support the life they were building. The structure made it, like I said, that they had to work until 7:30, 8 o'clock during the week and on Saturdays. They wanted to go on vacations. They might get sick. And we're like, oh my goodness, what do we do if you're sick? And it was just a whole thing. Everything was a thing. And that's how it is in all of these practices that I'm talking to on a regular basis. Because most vision therapy practices are built around one thing: a highly trained human being delivering one-to-one care, hour after hour, week after week. And when that person gets sick, burns out, moves, has life happen, or they're simply just done, the entire revenue stream wobbles. That's not a staffing issue. That's a structural issue. We've normalized this idea that the answer is hire better, train more, cross train, pay more, care more. But none of that changes the core problem. The model assumes unlimited energy, unlimited attention, unlimited emotional bandwidth. And none of us have that. not even your best therapists. And before we go on, I know what some of you are saying. Every therapy profession works this way. OT, PT, speech, but we have to remember the difference. People went to school to become OTs. They went to school to become speech therapists. They went to school to become physical therapists. There's no school for vision therapy. And so we happen upon an amazing person who seems to like love kids and adults, and they love working with the neurodivergent population. They also love working with geriatrics. They also love working with traumatic brain injury patients, and they don't mind working ridiculous hours and probably not getting paid as much as an OT or speech therapist or a physical therapist. And they come to work every day excited to help these patients. And that doesn't last very long if we can't sustain their lifestyle. That's why vision therapy is different. We don't get reimbursed at the same rates that OT, PT, and speech do. Our therapists are not even recognized by insurance companies. We barely are, if we're being honest. So our margins are tighter. And when we try to charge what it actually costs to run this model, families push back. So our delivery model isn't just human dependent, it's also economically fragile, which means if we keep delivering therapy the way we always have, the pressure doesn't go down, it compounds. And here's the part we don't say out loud. In many practices, vision therapy isn't standing on its own structurally. The doctors that I'm talking to are essentially subsidizing their VT practices with dry eye treatment or their optical or medical. It's being supported by other revenue streams in the practice. That's not a sustainable arm of your practice at all. And those revenue streams are predictable while this one isn't. And that works until it doesn't. Because when the rest of the practice tightens or overhead increases or reimbursement shifts, the most human dependent department becomes the most vulnerable. Vision therapists are highly skilled, so yes, they should be paid more than technicians. But here's the tension. The department that they're working for can't afford it. So how do we balance that? What do we do to make it so that everything is fair and equitable and we're operating as business owners, not just people who are in love with vision therapy? Because what we're really dealing with is rising labor costs and tight margins. And that's not a people problem, that's a math problem. So, what happens next is pretty predictable. Doctors start pulling back, they reduce hours, they start marketing it, or they quietly close the vision therapy department. As you know, practices all around us are closing. People aren't buying the practices of these retiring doctors because, as they're told in school, you can't make money in vision therapy. Every time I lecture to students, they tell me that they say that they love vision therapy, or maybe they don't love it, but like they think it's interesting, but they wouldn't be able to do it because, if we're being honest, these optometrists are graduating with the most debt that any optometrist has ever graduated with in history. The school prices are ginormous and they need to pay down their debt. It's just reality. And how can they enter a field where there seems to be no profit? That it's great to love vision therapy enough to say, okay, I'll have it as my passion project while the rest of my business is actually what's creating revenue. But that's not something that you can actually sustain, and it's not something that a new grad is going to be able to even begin to entertain. So the next generation is going in thinking that they shouldn't be going into vision therapy. And while that narrative isn't true, with the current delivery model, it actually feels true. And I'm not saying this as someone who's walked away from vision therapy. I like I said, love vision therapy. I've trained a gazillion therapists. I trained like over 50 vision therapists for my practice, for other practices. We brought them to become certified. We really believe vision therapy because vision therapy works. Vision therapy is amazing. Vision therapy changes lives. It's all the things. And in my practice, our therapists receive full-time salaries, PTO, 401k, medical, all the things, because we really wanted to offer them a long-term career path. But the only reason that I can do that is because we redesigned how we deliver care. Now, we didn't reduce therapy quality at all. That's like a non negotiable full stop. We didn't replace therapists. We built a model that stabilizes the foundation so therapists can do what they're best at. Here's the shift. We stopped building vision therapy around human hours and we started building it around intellectual property. Most practices monetize time. We decided to monetize structure. That doesn't mean less therapy. It means therapy is delivered inside a system that doesn't collapse when one person is unavailable. Wouldn't that be nice? Think about it this way. If your entire department only works when every therapist is present, every therapist is well, no therapists are on vacation, you don't have a scalable model. You have a fragile one. So we asked a different question. What parts of therapy require a highly trained human in the room? And what parts can be standardized, structured, and delivered in ways that protect both the therapist and the practice? Vision therapy works. That's non-negotiable. The science works. The outcomes work. But if we keep delivering it the way we did 20 years ago, we will keep burning out great doctors and great therapists. The specialty deserves a model that protects it. And if we're willing to rethink how we deliver care, not the care itself, but the architecture around it, then vision therapy doesn't just survive, it scales and it becomes a career worth entering and staying in. And that is the conversation that we need to be having.